Raj Verma at First Data/Pfizer with the Business Process Group with Women in Procurement panel. Today on December 3rd, we have a fantastic panel in front of us. And before we get started, we're going to be talking to some of the key leaders here in the room today. And a person we did not get a chance to talk to last time who has been very instrumental in kicking off the Business Process Group, Vice Chair Sean Arbach. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, great, Raj. Going to be a great evening tonight.
So I'm glad, you're usually traveling all over the world, especially for business. And I know Sean has a major role overseeing operations as the VP of Operations for Assurant. Can you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do?
Yeah, so at Assurant, I have a couple thousand people, half in the U.S., half abroad, and we just track to make sure people have insurance on their homes. And so I have people, multiple locations, and managing people is a challenging job in itself, right? You're responsible for productivity, but it's all about engagement and keeping people coming back every day.
Yeah, you have a pretty established team all over. So how do you communicate with them effectively and try to manage the virtual landscape?
I started this routine several years ago where I started sending out a Sunday email. Certainly we have, like any business, has their management routines where I meet with my directors and we have skip level meetings. But sometimes I found the message doesn't always get down. And I didn't certainly control it when it goes from a senior director, a director, ops manager, UM. So it's like, how do I can sort of control and influence? And so I started sending out a Sunday email. And it sort of has taken on a life of its own over the past 4 years. But it's been every Sunday, and it's morphed. And so there's sort of components, right? There's first component where I'm just sort of, I don't want to say pontificating, but giving my view of the world or some business idea or thoughts. Like this past weekend was all about change. So that sort of sets the tone. Then there's another section that gets into operations, so it connects people with the business. And then I always pull some articles, people to read, and it's very purposeful. And then lastly, there's a section about recognition. So there's something in it for everybody, but I really try to sort of echo the message I give to my directors and use that all the way through the organization to drive consistency and alignment.
Have you found that by doing this, that you're seeing people take an entrepreneurial shape in their own areas and their sphere of influence and are taking key components of what you provided and driving their own organization?
I do. And what's funny is that I will find people who come up to me and say, hey, I got your Sunday email and I love that article and I was able to take something away from it. And then I find out they're not even in the distribution list. So I find it going out across the Assurant. Like with any email, I lose control of it, but it just goes out. But a lot of people read it and they take action, which makes it worth the time because then it can take anywhere from an hour to 4 hours on a Sunday night, depending on if I have a great creative moment or I hit writer's block.
So, Sean, you've been a very strong proponent, instrumental in this group, in the Business Process Group, and it has changed over the years. How have you seen it evolve, and what value does it have in the marketplace?
When we started BPM, it was all about Six Sigma and cost cutting. And that's where we really spent our time. We'd have Six Sigma leaders come in and talk about the MAIC. They would talk about how they were cutting costs. It was very tactical. And then it kind of morphed into some software because we tried to keep that to more business process management, how to use Pega and other softwares. And then, I think, Raj, you and I and a few others wanted to be a little bit more strategic. And we moved it to talking more topical conversation about strategy and how people are using business process management to enable their business, to grow, to innovate, to make a difference, right? And I think that's created a different audience for us. It used to be people who came in and, hey, I do process maps, to now people who say, I changed the business. I lead major businesses, and you've given me insight from my peer group to really drive change or something to think about. So I think we have really changed the dynamic of who we are and what we want to talk about and brought in a different set of leaders who find a lot of value in what they're hearing as they're networking. Because, I think also when we started, it was a lot of, it was a lot of people in sales, a lot of people, nothing wrong with that, but a lot of people that were very much selling, doing, but they weren't leading. And today I think we're all about leaders, which has been a fundamental shift. But it's taken us, 6, 8, 10 years to get there. But we've built a strong brand in the Atlanta market. And people know, right, when they come to these events, that they're going to hear from the top speakers, the top executives, Atlanta, because we have no issue getting leaders from the major organizations all across Atlanta, right? Coke, Delta, UPS, Equifax, First Data. So it's been a journey, but I think we have really done a good job positioning ourselves right now.
And what do you see for the future for this organization?
For us in the future, it really becomes more strategic. I think we got to build upon what we've done so far. We've created a speaker series, but for us, I think it's bringing people together. We've had really a lot of dialogue with speakers, sharing information to practitioners, but then how do we get practitioners or other leaders to start engaging and networking and taking it that we build a network. And so I think that's what we have. That's where we do, and that becomes the real value of it.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. That was good breakdown on where BPM is going. It's better to hear from somebody who's living the operations as well as day-to-day driving this organization. So what I can say is thank you so much for everything that you've done for the Business Process Group. You've been a tremendous thought leader and a leader, and I'm sure you're providing that same level of value within your current organization.
Thanks, Raj. Appreciate it.
All right, we're back here at the Women in Procurement panel, bringing some of the top procurement thought leaders of Georgia to this event tonight. We're very excited. We've had the opportunity to just talk to Sean Arbach, one of the key board members of the Business Process Group, and now we have one of our illustrious, esteemed panelists, Krista Cleo, who serves as Director in Procurement for Porsche North America, but also is an esteemed speaker and author. And I have her book here, Hard Workers Work Hard, Networkers Move Up. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me.
So let me ask you this. You're speaking, you're writing, and you're managing procurement. How do you even have remotely the time to do all three of those things?
I don't. It's it's a lot. I get less and less sleep every day, but it's exciting.
So what made you choose to go ahead and write while you're overseeing procurement for all intents and purposes for one of the largest automakers in the world?
Yes. So one of the initiatives I started at Porsche was a leadership training, and leadership for my team as well as leadership training for other departments to help people learn to work across the silos, build relationships, and grow in their personal career. And so as I started building that, I started investing in myself to become a better leader. And the things that I learned, I put in the book to share with others.
That's wonderful. Now, have you been, I know that you probably get pulled into many different areas because people want, once you've got the book out there on the circuit, they're going to want you to talk about the book. So where's the fine line of managing, getting out and doing PR on the book as well as, doing what you have to do day to drive Porsche?
Well, it has been a major transition. So the last 2 years, I've been really building my brand, my personal brand inside the organization. And this last year, every day of my vacation was spent at speaking engagements and promoting my book and growing myself. And I actually just announced recently that I am leaving Porsche in January to pursue my business full time.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So now that, you're probably, is the correct word short timer? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you did 2 stints at Porsche, and
Yes.
you also spent some time at Coca-Cola. Give us a little bit of, when you first joined Porsche, the challenges you faced and how through, driving it, what was your greatest accomplishment, and how did you see your procurement organization change from the time that you were there?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I first joined Porsche in 2001, there was no procurement department. I actually joined on the after sales and parts side, and I was responsible for buying parts from Germany for our dealers here in the United States. And in 2004, I was selected along with 2 of my colleagues in parts to create the procurement department. So we did everything from scratch. We had to go and get contracts out of people's drawers and do all the training and put together the directives. And we started the procurement department from nothing. And so we grew it. And then in 2007, I was recruited by Coca-Cola. And I left because, I had gotten to a point in my career where I did not see the next step for myself because Porsche is a very lean organization. So I went to Coca-Cola and I was able to grow myself for the 3 years at Coca-Cola. I was promoted twice. But what I did was I maintained connections with all my colleagues at Porsche during those 3 years. And we would benchmark with each other and we would connect and we would share suppliers with one another. And when an opportunity opened to run that department, they called me back. And when I went back with a digital strategy because I learned so much at Coca-Cola, which is Coca-Cola has a world-class procurement department. So I learned so much from them that I brought back to Porsche. And when I came back in 2011, it was a completely manual, paper-driven organization. We were very tactical on the back end of processes. We were the roadblock to getting things done. So in the last 9 years, from 2011 to now, the team has grown from 3 to 13. We are completely paperless. We just recently rolled out a full source-to-pay system. Everything is electronic in the system, and we're strategic in working with the business. We're aligned with the business, and we have earned that seat at the table. So I would say the biggest impact, what I'm most proud of, is that growth from tactical to strategic and building those relationships and making an impact on the bottom line.
Yeah, I know you've had a tremendous influence, just from us being in the community here. We've seen both the diversity side as well as the procurement side of Porsche grow as an organization. So whoever is going to be coming is going to have some major shoes to fill. So what is next for you then as you're stepping away from this corporate world? Do you see this as where you're headed now is, you're going to be focused on the book and focused on writing and mentoring and leading? Is that where you want to take your career?
Absolutely. I am focused on leadership, executive coaching, business, corporate training, and leadership training for organizations. I'm a John Maxwell certified speaker. I'm a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. So I'm really looking forward to building up my clientele worldwide to build better leaders.
Now I feel absolutely intimidated because I don't have any of those things and I'm on the radio. So I'm trained by yelling at my kids.
That's good training.
And coaching travel baseball. So once again, Crystal, thank you so much for joining us today, and we really look forward to your comments on the panel.
Thank you, Raj.
Women in Procurement panel today by the Business Process Group, taking place December 3rd at the Pfizer and First Data companies. We have another one of our esteemed panelists here. Carla Marrero oversees global IT procurement for the Coca-Cola company. Do I got that right?
Yes, you did.
And so you have a little job, I heard.
I do, yes.
So we're talking about, I know the theme for tonight's panel will be on leadership as well as procurement. So let's talk about leadership first. What would you say your style is? And for such a large organization with so many people, how do you manage people with different personalities and different roles within your organization?
That's a very good question, first of all. So thank you for the opportunity, Raj. I would say my style is very much give your example. So first of all, like the things that you want from your team, you want to make sure that you kind of like are the sample of that. So if you want them to work hard, you have to show them you work hard. If you want them to understand that personal time needs to be respected, you have to be the first one to set those boundaries. So I like to lead by example. I know that that's kind of like easier said than done. At the same time, I think that the key of any organization is being able to have people from different backgrounds. So appreciating their opinions and taking them into account. I learn a lot more from them than I think that they learn from me. So listening to them, trying to find what are the things that that get to each of them normally helps me a lot to keep them motivated. And many times things that I would probably leave towards the end or that I don't tend to like, you will be fascinated to find out that there's somebody who just loves to do them. So I think that it's just kind of like allowing, being inclusive. It's what allows the team to grow and allows leaders to get results.
And I assume your team is all over the world.
We mostly have a team here in Atlanta and a team in India. So we're fairly centralized. I think there's been a tendency on the procurement side to centralize teams. So right now, that's how we are organized.
So switching gears then over to the procurement side, what would you say, without getting into too much details, because I'm sure we'll be hearing from the panel, from a procurement standpoint, what are some of your key objectives over the past couple of years that you've been very happy about and successful with, and what are you looking forward to most going into 2020?
I would say one of the things that I'm most proud of is spend penetration. I think any procurement person would say that being able to get more addressable spend and more opportunities to impact the organization is a key. I think we have at least double our reach, and we will continue on that path. We still see a lot of opportunities for addressable spend. My objective will be that nothing in the indirect side is untouchable. So I would say that's one. And the second one is, I think, is a typical procurement With the being able to penetrate more spend, we've also gotten a lot closer to our stakeholders, and therefore we've gained a seat at the table. So we're part of the staffing meetings of the main leaders that we support, and that has gained us a lot of not only opportunities to help, but also a lot of insights into the categories that we support.
So you're in a very interesting role.
Oh,
You
thank
have the CPO,
Oh, yeah.
and then you have the CIO. And traditionally, these two people have, should I use the word ego? Is that allowed to use? Let's just say they're sure of themselves. And you are the ping pong ball in the middle. So how do you, I don't want to get you in any trouble, Carl. I could say that because I had a similar role years ago. How do you balance your internal customers and stakeholders with also some of the policy mandates you have to do from a procurement standpoint, as well as hitting the CIO's goals? How do you manage those two key constituents that are looking for you for value? How do you keep them?
So I think that perhaps at times it goes into approaching. I did have the experience of being in marketing, and in marketing you learn that policy might be a bad word, although
You're always selling.
Exactly, although you are enforcing policy, but helping them understand that procurement brings value, and sometimes is working in deals that may not bring savings, but that are very important to them. So I think it's just delivering constantly. I know this is probably what everybody will answer, but I think it's delivering constantly, being driven, and being able to align your CPO that some of your goals should not always be on savings, but in the value that you bring to the company. And I think in IT that is constantly innovation, not always is a baseline. So a lot of getting into that innovation and how you support innovation, it's important.
No, I couldn't agree more. I'm glad to hear that. The supply stereotype is that we're just coming down with a hammer, right? Us, we've always lived in procurement, but we're like, listen, bring me a great idea, be innovative, and once you do that, then we can work on those things.
Yes.
So, Carla, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're really looking forward to your thoughts and comments on the panel.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for having me.
We are back here at Sandy Springs at the headquarters of Fiserv and First Data and Women in Procurement panel. And we've been running this radio show now for about 15, 20 minutes, and I can honestly say I never thought I'd be interviewing our next guest. I've had the opportunity to work with him in different and many different facets. I'm honored here to have former CFO, CPO, current CEO, John Campy. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing fine, Raj. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm honored.
I didn't expect to be on the radio tonight when I accepted your invitation to come and join this event.
You didn't, like they teach you when you're in contract management, always read the fine print. I think it was like in two font.
And I learned a long time ago with you to be careful.
So for full transparency, John and I go way back to GE days, and John has been a very supportive mentor for our firm as well as myself, so we're very excited you're here. So John, you're going to hear about today is a group of procurement leaders who come from various different backgrounds with corporate America and some smaller firms that are focused on innovation and next generation. Is there any advice that you would have for these leaders who are coming into their new roles based on your past experiences?
Well, first of all, bring to the table that which got you there. Don't be afraid to take risk. Step out, think outside the box. Don't look at any problem as if, well, it's been solved forever, so I'm going to do what others have done. Think about doing things differently. I've always looked at hiring the very best people I can. Raj, maybe with you that is an exception.
Touche.
But you have to make an exception occasionally.
Yeah, of course.
But in all seriousness, you look for athletes, and when it comes to a chief procurement officer, I want to see the best athlete I can. And when I say athlete, I care nothing at all about physical capability. I care about, can you think on your feet? Are you creative? Do you think outside the box? I find that generally speaking, people who do not have a procurement or purchasing background are best when coming into a CPO spot. Wow. Now, that may sound very strange to a lot of people.
I've heard you say it, and I agree, but I think that is, very much, I don't want to use the word controversial, but it is definitely against the norm. When you go out there and you talk to the Corns and Ferries, you talk to the Price Waterhouses, and even the McKinseys, or go out there recruiting for large companies, I know you got a lot of history. Is this based on those people already have a preconceived notion of what they're going to do before learning the environment? Why would you go?
Well, there are a lot of factors. I mean, I think I said it a minute ago with looking for an athlete. You got to think, I want somebody who doesn't feel like they're walking into a job that they know hands down. I want them to, in fact, be thinking, what is it I have to do to make this company successful, to do this job effectively? And bringing the skill sets that you have is fantastic, but you don't have to be an expert in procurement to be the chief procurement officer. I've never written a purchase order in my life, and I was CPO, as you know, for 2 major corporations. It's a matter of what are your core values, how does that match up with the company, and then what can I do to help accelerate the success of the organization, and do I understand how I fit within the strategy of the company?
I'm going to take you back. As you mentioned, you worked at a number of amazing Fortune 500 companies, and you've really had a massive impact, not only their cultures, but many people in the organizations. What would you say is one of your key, if you had to name 1 or 2 things that are highlights of your 20, 30 years in procurement that always brings a smile to your face?
Always brings a smile?
Once in a blue moon brings a smile.
The thing I've enjoyed the most is watching people develop. You hire the great talent, you give them the tools to do the job, and then you stand back and let them do their job. And hiring people that are, as I say, good athletes, and watch them struggle initially, get their feet under them, and then go drive to success. That gives the greatest satisfaction that I've ever had in my job. And, except for you, Raj, I mean, you was a little more difficult, but most people, it was pretty simple.
Well, as they say,
I'm kidding.
You take a look at some of these first-round quarterbacks who came in as a 2-star. I see myself as a 2-star, a Big Ten guy like you, right? You had to mold. You had to get paid. Your salary was earned by coaching me up.
That's right. You're right. No wonder I got fired. No, I'm only kidding.
So on that note, as we mentioned earlier, we have a tremendous group of leaders that are going to be on the panel, as well as next level in the audience today. And I know you have some key thoughts about even going forward. Some things haven't changed in today's environment. What, from a business context, would you tell these procurement leaders to focus on for 2020? What would you say are some of the key things that they should be aware of?
Well, for many, many years, cost was a big deal for procurement specialists. More importantly, risk is the issue. And I'm not talking about financial risk of a supplier. I'm talking about the strategic business risk to your company. There's nothing that will cause you to lose market cap faster than a mistake in your supply chain. And it'll drive a consequence that can be long-lasting and very severe. And we've seen this time and time again. And even as I say that, I still don't feel that most corporations, including the major corporations, do not fully understand the risk side of their procurement activity. We leave an awful lot of decisions to buyers, and those buyers are looking for that which will cause them to be successful and promoted. And if your incentive plans are incentivizing the wrong behavior, that's what you'll get. But risk management is something that is hidden in the supply chain. Not just because of who I buy from, but who are they buying from? What are the risks associated with that entire chain of events coming from raw material right into the finished product? And we've seen a lot of examples of that.
You bring up some great points, John. I'd love to keep talking to you about this. I know we're going to have to kick off this panel soon. One of the key elements, I know that we have a number of procurement people that listen to this. Are you on the market to consult with any CFOs or CPOs who need help in the risk space?
No, but
but you can point them in the right direction.
But I can point them in the right direction. That's correct.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing it.
Raj, just for the record, you're an outstanding guy. I've enjoyed the relationship. And someday I'll actually make a hit with you. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you so much, John.
All right, right.
Appreciate it. So my next guest, who's also an esteemed panelist, who will be speaking and giving us a lot of tidbits, Susanna Keller. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So, Chief Procurement Officer, Coca-Cola Bottling Services. How long have you been in that role?
So I always joke around with people that this is my second tour at Coca-Cola. So prior to this particular position, I was with Coca-Cola for 10 years. Then left for 5 years. I was mostly in industrial distribution, and I've been back for about 8 months now in this current role.
So I know today we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about some of the new things of next-gen procurement. So let's talk about leadership first. It is your second tour at Coca-Cola. So what have you brought, and what do you think that works well for leadership that you would want to tell our listeners that you've gained over the past years in your style?
Well, I always tell people, when you first come out of college, you think you're so good at everything. I think if somebody gave me a leadership role coming straight out of college, I'd probably be a horrible leader, because they're just something that comes with maturity and just understanding not only the business, but understanding yourself and learning from others. So I would say the leadership that I practice is servant leader for sure. That's just my nature. That's what I practice. And I always tell the folks, I don't know if you've seen this, it's been all over the internet, the wolf pack leadership. It's basically, they present the wolf pack, and you have, the seniors are in the front, and then you have, the strongest kind of in the front and the back, and you have kind of not the weakest, but kind of the medium of the pack in the middle, and then you have the leader in the back. And honestly, that's how I lead. And especially in this role that I currently have, because procurement is not my background. And so I heavily rely on my folks that are the experts in these categories, and they're probably one of the best in the world in what they do, to really give me that technical expertise. And I let them lead. And I let them come up with the ideas, and we just kind of talk about it and do it that way. But I really kind of lead from behind, if you will, if that's a saying.
So you said procurement is not your background, but now I'm going to ask you a procurement question, right? So overseeing the organizations you have, which, let's be honest, it's massive.
It is massive.
It's one of the if not the largest brand name, the largest one in the world. So you have tremendous number of challenges, and always the easiest thing is always cost cutting, hitting your suppliers, savings. But what are some of the other key objectives that you see as being successful for your organization?
Yeah, so my role specifically is with CCBSS, and so we cover North America bottlers. And so for us, we have kind of three main things that we're focused on. Service and quality is number one. As you mentioned, our brand is the most important thing. And so when our consumers drink our beverages and enjoy them, the number one thing for us is to make sure that those beverages are of highest quality, and we never compromise on service and quality. That is the number one thing that we care about. Number two is innovation. We have to be innovative. We always look for the ways to either be innovative through technology, through products, through packaging, whatever the case may be. But everything we do is related to innovation. And then the last thing is we have to continue to stay competitive in the marketplace. So I would say those are our priorities in that exact order.
So is there something specific you're doing from an innovation standpoint to keep ahead of the game? Do you guys have an innovation center, or do you do sessions with your larger
So we partner with our suppliers. Obviously, when it comes to beverages and such, we do all the innovation in-house. But when it comes to procurement, we really do the partnership with our suppliers, because who knows more about cans or PET than folks who are producing cans and PET. We will never know as much as they will about things like that. We know a lot. So we partner with them, and we ask them, hey, what are some of the latest and greatest packaging innovation? As an example, what are the things that you see coming down the stream? And those are the types of innovations that we do. We do innovation sessions with them. We look through our portfolio of products. We think about things that we can do, because it's really hard in procurement. You can negotiate over the same pen for so many years until it's just impossible to get it any cheaper, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody comes out with a pen that's just unbelievable, right? Has 10 different colors, maybe it's a 3D printer at the same time, now it's adding so much more value, and you're starting to kind of get away from that cost discussion, if you will, and you're talking about all these different things that now your customer and consumers can see value in. So those are the types of things that we would do from innovation.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you for your secret sauce, but I'm just I know you're setting your 2020 agendas or initiatives, but let's look back. What would you say was the highlight of the 2018-19 year for you?
I wasn't here in 2018.
So let's talk about 2019.
So 19 is, for me personally, was really returning to the Coca-Cola system. I always loved that, and I think anytime you see that, if you've been with Coca-Cola, when you see that red truck, there's something that happens in your chest. That you feel this warmth, if you will, for that red truck. And, I managed an MU, so for me, it holds a very special thing. For us in 2019, the highlight, I would say, would probably be I don't know that it's necessarily procurement related, but we do two things to measure success. One of them, not many things. One of them is engagement from our folks. and we measure the customer satisfaction. And honestly, this is the first year that we hit both of those targets. And I can just tell you that if I put all the negotiations and everything else aside, to me, those are the biggest accomplishments that I had as a leader and then my leadership team had, because I always tell them I don't do anything.
No.
I have the best job in the world. I get to enjoy.
You're very, very
everybody else.
humble. And I know we're going to get a bunch of other nuggets. I know we're just about to kick off tonight's panel. So thank you so much for joining us on the radio. I know
Absolutely.
this was kind of spontaneous for everybody, but thank you so
Absolutely.
much. And we're looking forward to hearing you on the panel
Well,
tonight.
thanks for the opportunity. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to maybe doing this another time as
Oh,
well.
most definitely.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Well, that ends our preliminary discussions with our thought leaders for tonight's Women in Procurement panel. We were going to be kicking it off, so we'll be seeing everybody really soon at our next episode of Procurement Innovation, brought to you by Gwinnett Business Radio and Go Procure.